If you're able to like practice the student registration form, just drop a yes in the message box. Okay, Victor, well done. Olusegun, well done. So today we're going to advance into CSS. So now we'll all be doing something boring. Since when we started, I think that's kind of boring. So and this is like some of you lost interest because it was more of like nothing stylish or appealing to the eye. So today we're going to come up with styling CSS. So we're going to be doing CSS today. And CSS is what brings out beauty on our web applications, the layout. So we're going to start with introduction using CSS. So CSS is used to style and lay out HTML content. So just like I said in the last class, when you're trying to build a house, you make use of HTML, and HTML represent the blocks, the structure. So now, if you want the structure to come out, you want to see the build, you want to see the styling of the structure, you want it to look appealing to the eyes. This is where we need to apply CSS. So today we'll be starting with the basics of CSS today. So CSS is used to style and layout HTML content. It allows us to add colors, font, spacing, and positioning, giving the website a polished appearance. CSS can be written directly within the HTML, and it can be written outside the HTML file, which is called the CSS file. So that we'll be talking about that in our next class. We'll talk about internal and external CSS. So internal CSS in the process whereby we'll be writing our CSS inside the HTML. We'll be writing our CSS here inside the HTML. So why external means we will not be writing the CSS inside here. We'll be referencing a file where the CSS is being written inside. So basic CSS syntax includes selectors, which identify the HTML styles. So we have properties that define the aspects of the style, how you want the font size to look, the color to look. Then values, this specific, how to style, this is like a specific way on how to set the value of our style. Like for example, we have a property called color, and inside the property of color, we pass values like red, blue. So let me give you an example now. Let me show you an example. So this is, for example, we have like the P tag is an element on its own. P tag is an element. Then we use the class name in selecting the elements. So let me look for an example here. Okay, now let's use this as an example to see basically what I'm trying to explain here. So there's a P, this P tag here is an element. This P tag here is an element. It's an element. So this is the element here, the P tag. So now if these are properties of the styles relating to the element, this element here. So please, if you know you're not getting what I'm saying, please let me know if you're not understanding what I'm trying to explain. So this is a P tag. Yeah, so this is a P tag here. So this is a P tag here. So I'm trying to apply a style on the P tag. So let me just do a separate one here. Let me just do a separate one called Hello World. Okay, let me open. Let me just create a new folder so it's not going to smash with what we did last week. Okay. So now I want to do like a element called with the P tag, which is called Hello World, which is called Hello World. So let me save this. Uh, okay. Oh, sorry. Let me remove this. So, so now this is a P tag called Hello World. So this text is inside a paragraph tag called inside the P tag. This Hello World here. So now what they're trying to explain to us is, you know, like I said, the basic of CSS is selectors, properties, values. So for you to apply styling on the on a text or anything or on the text on HTML, you need selectors. So the way right now, I'm using the P tag as the selector. So inside like I said, inside here, I'll be writing my style. So on the selector here. So the P tag here now will be color. Let me change the color to green. So green. So by the time I refresh the page, these are properties of the style that you want to apply. The font size, the color. So now I'm going to refresh the page here, right here. So this is Hello World. This is Hello World. This is color green now. So if I come back here and remove this, okay, if I come back here now and change it to something else called dot p tag, you would see you will see that the color is gone. So that P tag is what? Is a selector. So there are different ways of applying the selectors, there are different ways. So, but let's keep on, let's continue following the whole process. So we've been able to apply this style to a P tag or to an element called the P tag. So we have types of stylings. CSS can apply in three main ways, which are the inline, internal, and external. So let's start with the inline. So the inline CSS can be applied directly within an HTML element using the style attribute. So we can use the style attribute and apply. So these changes are applied here. I can actually do it directly on the tag, but it's not professional to do this. It's not professional to do this. So this is the style here. So let's follow what's so we apply the properties of the style. So the properties of the style, put the color, green, put the font size, so now I applied the color. I applied color to this now, which is color green, and I increased the font size. I wanted it to be big, so I put the sub font size to what? 50. If I want it to be more bigger, I can increase it to 100 px or 200 px or 100 pixels, and I save this. Now this is what it becomes much more bigger. So I apply the style inline. So that's inline. So right here, said we're not moving on to internal CSS. Internal CSS is defined within a style block. So that's just like what I've created here. This is a block, the CSS block, the style, an open tag and close tag. So this is the plug here. This is the block here. So this is the block, the style, open and the close one here. Okay, so which we've done before, but we're gonna do that again. So now this is not actually good to do this because when you have like a much more bigger structure, you can't be writing this in the if you are trying to create a registration form, can't be doing this inside the P tag. It's going to be looking so clumsy. So I'm going to move this out. So now I've removed it. So by the time I'm refreshing this page, it looks ordinary now. So I'm going to now apply the tag here, this element. So the color has been applied already. So let me increase the font size to 200. Let me say 200. Just want to increase it. So because I've increased the font size, so it's now much more bigger. So the hello world is big now. So that's what we call an internal CSS. So external CSS now is just all about me copying. It's just all about me copying the styles out and putting it in a different file. So, but before we move forward, before we copy this and put it in a different file, I wanted to show you something called class. Is it class name? Class name. Yeah, class name. Okay. Okay. Hold on, I'm coming. Okay. So I'm going to move this CSS outside this file. So in case we don't want, in case when this CSS is becoming large, very large, we can't put it in the same file with HTML. So we'll create a new file called style.css. So I'm creating a new file here, style.css. This is called external CSS. So I'll copy this guy, copy it out of here, copy it. So I'll put it in a separate file. You can see now I've cleared the CSS. So CSS is another file. So this is not going to actually display anything right here. It's just going to be blank. So what are we going to do now? What we're doing now is external CSS. So it's stored in a separate file, like I said, called .css. So the extension for the file is called .css, as HTML is called .html. So we'll be making use of the link tag to link the CSS file. So I'm going to copy this link tag here, put it on Visual Studio, come here, paste it here. So the name of our CSS file is called style.css. So we'll be writing style.css here, then save it. Then you see, this was blank before. By the time we refresh the page, it appears again. So to explain, so we have our CSS file in a separate file. It's in a separate file called style.css. And we imported it here. So there's no need of us writing our CSS inside the file. Inside the file. So one thing about this is for you to get better understanding, you need to practice. Practice. You can just listening alone wouldn't help. But listening plus practice will make things easier and smoother and be able to even go beyond what I'm teaching here. So 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 for you to apply CSS, you have to make sure you are calling the element. So we're going to add another element called H, we're going to change this p tag into, okay, we're going to add another element called H1. And this H1 will be called Introduction to CSS. Introduction to CSS. Introduction to CSS. So we have Introduction to CSS here. So I'm going to apply styling to this Introduction to CSS right here. Okay. So all these are CSS properties. So we have CSS properties. So we're going to apply a font property to the H1 tag. So this helps to, what font does is just that it helps us to change the text appearance, the appearance of the text. So I'm going to copy this guy and then apply it. So we're going to add another tag here called um, the H1 tag. Apply this. Yeah. You see, so the changes being applied on this guy, H1 tag. You see, it has, this is the font, it has changed. So I applied a font family, the font size, the font style, all has been applied on the introduction to CSS. So borders, what we call borders are set around elements using border properties, which includes the border width, the border style, the border style. So we're going to create a div tag and um apply it to the border. So we're going to create a div tag and apply border to it. So um I'll go back into the HTML file and add a div tag inside the div tag, and then I close the div tag here. Right now I've applied the div tag, but we can't see the div tag because we can't see the border around the div tag. So I'm going to make the border visible now by applying this style. So now this is the border that I applied here now. So it's so I can actually make the border much more thicker, to be much more thicker. Let me put 4px. Okay, 4px. By the time I refresh, the border should be very thick. See, it becomes more thicker with that. So by the end of this class, we're going to apply a CSS styling on the student registration form we did last week as assignment. But let's first of all understand the basics. So by the time we go into that, it will look interesting. But I know right now it might look boring, but let's just learn the basics. So before we start applying the styling on the form. So now the next step for us to go into is called padding. So padding, this is where you want applying space between elements. Like for example, now you want to do a padding between a P tag and a H1 tag. So which we are going to do, which we are going to apply now. So we're going to apply padding now. So this padding is 15 pixels, but sometimes some of these things are not visible. So we need to like make it, we need to like just make the, add like a border to make it thick and visible. So now to the P tag, I'm applying a 15px on it now. 15 pixels on it. Let's see if it's going to be visible. Let me refresh. Okay, now, so there's a padding below here. I don't know who noticed the padding. If you notice the padding, please drop a comment in the chat box. If you notice the padding when I refresh the page. Okay. Okay, Oba, you're asking a question. Okay, Emmanuel, you noticed? Yes, more space. So the padding creates more space between elements. So like as I said, HTML elements, they have both open and close tags, like I've said. Yes, there's a shift below. You have like an open and close tags. So now for you to create like spacing with CSS, you need padding to do that. So now you can see that CSS is mostly about styling. It's like you are painting your walls. So it's just like you apply styling to the sections of HTML you want it to affect, or to the elements of the HTML you want it to affect. So the next place we are moving to is called margin. So margin is the space outside the elements border, creating a space between elements. So we're going to add this margin now to the div tag. So we're going to apply this margin now. I'll apply it to the div tag, the margin. So to understand, it's more about practicing. So let me make it much more. Let me add more. It wasn't too obvious. Let me add more. 50 px. So you can see the padding, sorry, you can see the margin I added on the div tag. I added a 50px margin here. And let me see. So I want to teach you a trick to advance. Like now, teach you a trick. Like for example, let's say you want to copy a website. Let's say for practicing purpose, you just want to copy a website. The way their styling is, you can actually click on inspect, then take this arrow here, click on this arrow here on the left bottom corner, on the left bottom, yeah, then move it around. You can see the div. This is our div tag here. Once we click on our div tag, on the div tag here, we can see 4px, 50, the margin is 50px. So if I remove the margin, you can see, once I add the margin, you can see the margin. I'm removing and adding the margin back. This was what I did in the code. This margin here was the one I added, the margin right here. That gave us that big space for the div tag. So let's move on. Okay, so we have a practical example here. So we're going to apply this now. But this one is just a practical example, but the final example we'll be doing is as the student's registration form. That will be the final example we're gonna treat. So let me copy this old CSS, the styling. So based on this tag, we're going to create tags based on all this. So this header here is referring to what? An header tag. So we're going to create a header tag here now. I'm going to add the header tag. Close tag. I'm coming. Try and check something. Okay, so this is an header tag here. So looking for so okay. Header tag. Oh, I did not save. Let me refresh the page now. So this is the header tag now. So now let me explain what the header tag CSS is doing right here. So for the header tag, the background color is white. They're using white for the background color, which makes it look, I think, like a white or gray. So the color, is being applied on the text, which is this grayish, which is gray. Then the font family, we are using sans serif and Arial. Then the padding for this text is 20 pixels. Then the text align is in the center. So that's why we have this text here in the center. Then the border bottom. So we make sure that it's 2px and is also a solid white for the border at the bottom. So that's one thing. One thing about CSS, if you know how to apply it, then you can go ahead and check out other CSS properties and apply them to your HTML elements. So we're going to add an image too. We're going to add we're going to add an image to our CSS. We're going to add an image to our CSS here. So let me copy this guy, the image here. Copy. I'm gonna add the image. Okay, the image is already here. So I'm going to import an image from our last class. Copy the image here. So this image tag here, we already written in CSS. We're already calling the HTML element in our CSS. So we're going to do the border. Let's give it another color, reddish color. Then padding of 5x. I will make the border a 2px solid, so it's going to be visible. So by the time I refresh this guy, you should see the image here. You should see the cat. This is the cat here. So the reason why we're having this red around it is because of the border. So I'm going to make the border very thick. So I'll make it 4px and I'll change the color to whatever color. I'll change the color to this. And refresh it. So you can see the green color surrounding this. So let's continue. So we're going to talk about box model and layout basics. So hold on, I'm coming. Try and check something. So it's more about practicing. You need to practice. So the more you practice, the more it gets easier and interesting. Then you can build interesting data applications where you can collect data, process the data, refine the data, and anyhow, and in any way you can, make the data valuable for you. So um, so before we go into the box model, so there's a way we can actually interact with the HTML elements without you calling the p tag. Like for example, now we have p tag, and normally in our code we can have more than 10 p tags. We can have more than 10 div tags. We can have more than 10 images. So if you are calling the p tag once, it's going to affect every p tag in the HTML. So there's something we call, so you can use selector. There's what we call selector. So you can use a selector by calling it by the class or by the ID. So let me use class. So for example, this class, okay, let me first of all remove the CSS for this p tag. Let me remove it so you can understand what I'm so for the p tag, we are going to remove the CSS off. So now if we refresh this page, it should give us something not interesting. So this p tag is the hello world. So if I refresh it, or did I save? Okay, p tag. Okay. So the p tag, the reason why this is being affected is because of it is inside the header. It is inside, is it inside the header or inside? It's inside the div tag, sorry. And I've written CSS for that div tag. So that it will actually affect this guy. But I can actually manipulate it specifically. I can actually manipulate this. So the way I'm going to do this now is I'll come here and create something called class and apply, and I'll call it p tag class. Save, then come here and put a dot. Yeah. So once I've named and changed the color to something reddish, then increase the font size to 54. Then I come here, back here and refresh. You can see it has been affected. Without me calling the elements, I use a selector called class. Class is a selector that can allow you to manipulate specific HTML elements. So if you have more than two p tags, p3 tag, p tags, you can actually use a selector. So I'm calling this one is just a p tag. This p tag selector here is actually pointing to this element called p tag here. So I'm using that. Okay, so now let's proceed now to the next step. So we're talking about the CSS box model. It's a fundamental concept that describes how elements are structured and spaced in CSS. Understanding the box model helps you create a well-organized, visual, consistent layout. So each element in CSS is represented as a rectangular box with four main components called the content, padding, border, margin. Like I've shown you example of what padding looks like, border looks like, and what margin looks like. So right now, we'll be applying this to the div tag, this box. It's going to apply to the div tags. So, but before I apply it, let me clear this one. Let me clear this guy off. Let me comment it out. So by the time I save it, so you see that stuff is gone already. It's gone. It's gone. So now I'm going to apply the box to the div tag now. So we're calling it box. So right now, I'm not calling the element. So this is just a selector. And how I will apply the selector is by what? Is by adding a class or a reference to it. So where's our div tag? Okay, this is our div tag here. So I'll come here and write class, then reference it to the box and put in box here. By the time I save this, it should affect, you see, it's now applies the box to it because I've referenced it already. So there's something we call width and height. So this is when the present whereby I want to add sizing to the box. Like you want the padding, so like we want the width to be 300 px, we want the height to be 200 px, and all those things. So right now, this guy, this our box, this is our div tag here, is looking this way. So when we apply this, the width, you see, it's going to increase in length. It will increase in length now. So I'm going to copy this box, these properties here, and apply it to this guy here. We have, okay, we have already the padding. Okay, we already have that. So I'm going to just increase it in size. I'll call this 100 px, and it should increase. So the length should increase. So the length should increase. Oh, it decreased it. No, it decreased. Oh, so I think the reason for that is, let me check. Oh, I wrote 100 px instead of 300 px. It was 300 px before, then I wrote 100, so that's why it decreased. So I was meant to like increase the numbers, you understand? So let me put here 100 px, so this should increase in length. Now, yes, it has increased in length now. So I want to ask a question. If I want to decrease this size back, so how many px should I put in to decrease this size back to decrease the length of this div tags box here? Who can answer that? Who can drop that in the box question in the chat? Someone should answer that and drop it in the chat. I'm trying to decrease this box. I want to go back. 30 px. Okay, let's try 30 px, but I know that will be too small. Yes, Steven said 300 px. So we're going to try what Akonde said, 30 px. Steven said 300 px. So let's try 30 px. Let's see what it's going to give us. Wow, 400 px. That will be large. Yeah, we can try 400 px too. So let's try 30 px. Let's see what it's going to look like. Oh no, oh no. Oh, oh, no. So let me just try. No, 50 px will be too small. So I'm going to try 300 px. What happens when we try 300 px? What happens? Yeah, it increases. So let me try 400 px. It's going to increase again when I apply 400 px. Let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, it increases again. So with the help of the div tag, we're able to achieve this. So move next to display property. So display property determines how the element is visually displayed on the page. Common values of this property are called block, inline, and inline block. So we're going to apply them. Inline block elements. So let's try block. Let's see what happens. Uh, okay, display them. Sometimes some of these things might not be visual. It won't be visual. Some of them will be visual. So when there's sometimes they are needed and sometimes not really needed. So the displayed inline block combines property of the block and line element. Align the element to take up only much width or breadth as its content while still respecting the height and the width, you know. So go into layout basics. So CSS offers layout tools with float and position, being the foundation for creating layouts. So for the float property is used to position the elements left or right, which we are going to apply on our div tag. So we're going to move, which will be navigating pushing it to the left side and to the right side. So we're going to apply those example now. So we're going to use float here. So I think defaultly we're already on the left. So let me apply float here, and put in, let me type left, save. Let's refresh. Nothing's going to happen because we're already on the left. We're already on the left side. So let's try right. Let's type right. Let's see what happens. So it pushes it to the right side. The float will allow us to position the elements of our HTML. So there's something called positioning. So there's something called positioning. Positioning is the property that allows elements to be precisely positioned within their container or relative to the page. So let's try position here. So let's apply the types of so we have the relative position. So this top means there should be 10px should be applied on top of the box, which is our div tag here. So look at this page before I refresh it. You should see some changes. So the changes, just a little changes that apply. The 10px just add from applying 10px on the top, pushed it down a little bit. Added 10px. So if I should increase it now to 30px. So it's apply space at the top. So we're going to absolute. Let's apply absolute to it. So this is what it did to it. So we pushed the space. So now let me show you something. This left means the space by the side, 100px. So you push it to the side, so 100px. Then the top, he applies 50px on top. Then the position is absolute. So please, if you have any question before we proceed to the student registration form, so you can please ask your questions if you have any question. If you have any question, please drop your question before we proceed. Okay, we don't have any questions. Okay. So once we don't have any questions, we can proceed into the student registration form. So I'm going to create a new file called student.html. creating a new file called students.html. So we're expecting it to be blank. Expecting it to be blank. So this is based on our last week assignment. If you try to, if you tried in doing the assignment last week, this would help you. You can actually practice as we do this live. I don't know. I think I have a mistake here. There's a mistake here I'm facing here. I don't know if anybody can look at the screen and point out to the error I'm making. I'm making an error here. Can anybody identify the error that I've made? Yeah. Okay. CSS stands for cascading style sheets. Okay. Thank you, Victor. Yes. Closing the tag style. Yes. Okay. I've corrected that. There's still an error here. There's still an error. I'm making a big mistake here. Yes. EA. Yes. I've removed the style. I've done the one for the style, but there's still an error here. I still like. There's still an error I applied here. Yes. Yes. A tire. Yes. Okay. Yes. The close. Yes. The close. The body. Yes. The body tag. This is where the error is, where I'm making. The body tag is not meant to be here like this with the egg. So now load the student page. So now this is the form, the student registration form. It looks so very ugly, but this is what we did last week, building this form. So we're going to apply styles to this. Yes, Julius, that's correct. The title tag must be in the head. That's correct. That's correct. Okay. So now let's proceed in applying the CSS, applying CSS to this. So let's start with the body. So the body element, I'm going to apply CSS here in the body element. Normally, I'm meant to write the CSS inside here, where it's going to be too clumsy, but um, let me start writing the CSS here first of all before I create the file, so you understand. When I say we can't be writing CSS in the same file with HTML because it will look so clumsy. So we are starting with the body tag. So let's apply CSS for the body tag now. So this is the body tag, and the body tag what? The body tag is at the top level. It's at the top level of the HTML structure. So I'm applying this here. So inside the body tag, so every element that is inside the body tag here, we want to apply the font family to be Arial. The background color should be white. The display should be flex. The content should be in the center. Then the items should be in the center. So we can use, and the I should be 100. So now let's refresh. Let's see what happens. So now this is the background color. But okay, this is the background color for now. So this is the body. So because of the student registration form is inside the body. So that's why it's affecting everything because I'm writing on the body. So now the next step we are going to is for the form. We are going to write the CSS for the form. So where is our form tag? This is our form tag here. So I'm writing the CSS against the form tag. We want our background to be white. Let me see if I can break this side. Let me put this aside. Okay. I want us to view the same. Oh, no. Okay. Okay. So me applying this, the form here, the background is going to be white. So let's save and refresh the page. So the form is, so now you can see the background is white. So we are looking at the form, which means inside the background of the form is going to be white inside. You can see how it's being mapped to each other. And sometimes if I don't want to call the form, if we have multiple forms, what I need is to do what is to apply a reference, a selector. By using the class, I call this how is it like? Okay. I call this form 1. And I call back here. See form 1, once I come here, put the dot here, put 1, and refresh. It's still there. You can see the styling is still displaying because it's a selector. This class is a selector. It's mapped to this guy. So, but if I rename this class, if I come here and tamper with this class and I remove the 1, you can see this form and this one, they are not the same. This is form 1, and this one is saying what? Let's say form 0. Form 1, form 0, there are 2 different names on its own. So if I should refresh this page, we are not going to see the style will go away. You can see because it's not matching. It's not matching. So I can change this one back to form 1 and refresh it. And what we see here is what? Student registration form. So the next step is to what? The student registration form. I want to write a style. I want to apply style to this student registration form. So you can see there are different ways of referencing those styles. If I don't want it to be, if we have multiple elements, you can just reference them with a selector by creating a class. So now let's refresh. Let's see the changes. You can see now, we said we should align the text in the center of the form. The margin below here, in the bottom should be below here, should be 20 px. So if I do an inspection now, you see that is a 20 px. I would like this. Okay, it's not, the screen is too small for me to do this. Okay, 20 px. So the next place I'm going to apply is what? The p tag. You can see we have multiple p tags here, multiple p tags in our code. We have multiple p tags, multiple p tags, multiple p tags. So once I apply this, it's going to affect every p tag on the form. Every p tag in the form is going to affect it. By the time I save and refresh, it has applied that 15, the margin bottom is already applied. So the next step is to apply CSS to the labels. So the labels, which are the names, if you look at the code here, I use label in saving the names, the full name, the email address. Let's refresh. You can see it has been applied already. The styling has been applied already. You can see. So it's just like you're painting a house. So you point the styling to the section of the HTML element you want it to affect. So now I want it to affect I want to write the CSS style that affects the input tag, the input text box, the email address, the text area, and the button, and this register button, yeah. So I'll apply that. So now we can see that the CSS is becoming too clumsy here. If you look at it here now, the CSS is becoming too clumsy here. It doesn't make sense. So we are going to move all these CSS into a file. We're going to move them into a file. So I'm going to move them into the file. So this was where I applied the body, the form. This form one, I'm using it as a selector against this form here, form one. The H2, the H2 CSS properties is pointing to the H2 elements here. Then the P tag the P tag properties is pointing to this guy here. So all the P tags in the student registration form. Then the input select text area and button. This will affect them. So let me refresh. You can see how beautiful it looks. There's something wrong somewhere. Something somewhere. Something wrong somewhere. Okay. This is becoming too. Okay. Okay. So now once we've applied the CSS already, so you can see how beautiful the form looks. So we can't. So we can't. How will I explain this now? So now we can't leave the CSS here. We can't leave the CSS. It will look so clumsy. So we are going to copy this out. We're going to remove this away from here and create a new file called student.css. We call it student.css. Yeah, paste them here. So now we have no CSS, yes. So I remove the CSS. For now, let's use the normal form. Save, come back. So bring this. So if I remove the CSS, so if I should refresh, it goes back to the ugly. So if now we need to import the file. We've exported the CSS to an external file. We need to call it inside here. Call student.css. Student.css. Save and refresh. So we have the form here now. The register button, the select course. So this is how you create the form. This is how you create the form. So I'm going to put this. I will put this in the notes. So one, apply the CSS and practice it from the last class. Practice it and see how it's going to turn out. because if you don't practice, you're not going to understand how this works. It's all about practicing and practicing, applying. It's all about practicing and applying it. It's all about practicing. So if you don't practice, you can't get it. You can't get it. It's not magic. It's more about practicing and practicing and practicing. That is all about. It's all about practicing. It's all about practicing. So I'm going to update it as our assignment. So we've come to the end of our class. If you have any questions, please drop them in the box. And if you don't have any, I'm going to update the notes and add this as our assignment where we're going to practice and applying the style. So by the ending of this class, or by the ending of this boot camp, we'll be able to create a website, a simple website, or knowing how to apply HTML and CSS. So if you don't have any questions, I think we are all good. But if you have any questions, please drop them. Okay, no frameworks. We're not going to cover using frameworks, but if you want to advance, you can use frameworks like Bootstrap for your CSS. You can use frameworks or libraries. You can use libraries like Bootstrap, Tailwind CSS. You can use them, but those ones are a bit advanced. So for you to understand all those things, you need to start with the basic of this one I'm teaching you. Because when I teach you this basic, you're able to now understand of using those things. So for example, now you can use Bootstrap with this. You can use Bootstrap. Bootstrap is more advanced. Is more advanced. Is more advanced. Bootstrap is more advanced. So, but for now, this is just the basic CSS here. So this comes to the ending of our class for today. Okay. Oba, you are suggesting Bootstrap in our last class. Okay. Let's complete with the basics first of all, then we can move into Bootstrap. Because I don't want to push into advanced stuff. So I want us to be okay with the basics. So let us go practice with this first of all. Then we can now go ahead and apply other things, other libraries. If you don't want to be writing your CSS from scratch, that's when you can now start making use of libraries. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your cooperation. So I'm going to update the notes, and for as assignments, go and practice, and on how you can apply CSS to this. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.